We're going to talk a little bit about cash games versus large field tournaments, but also showdown. So it's going to be a great episode. This is part 3 of this daily fantasy soccer series, and we're starting right now. What's up, guys? Joe Holka here. Welcome to another daily fantasy sports and betting video. If this is your first time here and you want to become a profitable DraftKings player and get better at betting, start now by subscribing to the channel, but make sure you click that notification bell so you don't miss anything along the way. And if you're already a Holkamaniac, you know exactly what time it is. Smash that like button and we'll get started. Similar to roster construction, one of the most important things when it comes to being a profitable player on DraftKings and FanDuel is proper game selection. Game selection for soccer. I know you're primarily a one lineup guy for most of these sports, so you're probably just running trains in a lot of these contests. You think that's the best way to kind of go about capturing the upside on some of these like smaller prize pools, or what's your game selection been like? Like we talked about your cash game action a decent amount, but what else are you rolling out there? Just as much as you can get?
Yeah, usually I just do one lineup. My brain doesn't function well with running tons of lineups, so I run one lineup, generally train it. In my opinion, it works well for me because my lineups are generally very profitable lineups in the GPPs, especially like the 4, which is what I'll train. I won't really train anything above like the 4 or 5, whatever it is, the 8, the 10, whatever the big GPP is. And I won't really train it if it's a terrible structure. DraftKings does really stupid things sometimes that everyone tells them is dumb, and then they continue to do it. And then once in a while, you'll have a structure that isn't moronic, and then it's better to do stuff or play. So it's a situation where, like, there was a time in the summer I trained one of the showdown slates, I believe, in the World Cup, and I think it was a 20K prize pool, like $10 buy, and I think I took 45% of the prize pool with my training. So, I mean, it was a great situation for me, and if I'm doing that, like, that paid for the whole summer of World Cup stuff.
I think running out one lineup for some of this niche stuff I've talked about before, it almost gives you a little bit more upside than you probably should have in some of these prize pools. You mentioned just taking out a big chunk of it. I think that's a really good way to approach it. When they do get a little bit bigger, we saw this in NHL Showdown as soon as the playoffs started. They really started to make these structures. I mean, they're still terrible structures, but they started to at least increase the prize pools a little bit. So I've experimented with a decent amount of MME in Showdown NHL. Before we get off game selection, have you experimented at all with 3-mans, or is this really not one of those sports where there's a ton of action in that for you right now?
No, there's good action in 3-mans. I have a lot of action in 3-mans every slate. It depends. The problem is that sometimes it becomes like a rag fest in the 3-mans. So there's a few guys that are good, or at least they're very similar. The 2 or 3 of the big guys, like, we have a different goaltender approach. So goaltender, a lot of the time, offsets the whole slate and decides the slate. And it's just a variance fest, so it's not great. But most of the guys that are playing the high end, they are not bad enough to miss on the no-brainer plays of the slate. So if you have a bunch of guys that aren't missing on no-brainer plays of the slate, it makes those games a lot more difficult if they're only the ones filling it. Now, that said, if they are non-reg filled 3-mans, those can be very profitable because people just aren't very good at that.
By the way, guys, if you ever found value in any of my videos or live streams, one of the best ways you can support what I'm trying to do here for free is by throwing me the follow on Twitter. But if you are new to the community and you didn't realize, I actually do a ton of content over on Instagram now as well, specifically IGTV. So if you could take a few seconds and throw me the follow over there, I'd really appreciate it. So is soccer one of those sports where cash games are viable, or is it transitioning more to the tournament side of things like a lot of the other sports we've talked about? Say you're someone that wants to maybe run a few different lineups, so cash games versus GPPs. Should there be a different approach for these, in your opinion, if you are rolling out more than one lineup? Like let's talk a little bit about floor versus ceiling as well in soccer, because that's got to be a big part of it.
Yeah, so you're looking for – there's definitely a situation where you would rather have different lineups. I don't do it. My lineups generally play well regardless. I'm not the best GPP player. I don't chase goals, essentially. So the difference is so you look at a floor. You have a guy like James Madison who averages 12 to 13 points a game. They're a decent favorite. So basically, you're going to get 10 to 12 points out of him every time. He has upside for goal and assist. Maybe you can get to 30 or 40. And then you contrast him to someone like Sergio Aguero. Aguero's probably going to get you 6 to 7 points. He has upside of 40 to 50 points. The problem is that Madison basically, on a lot of guys that are goal dependent, or a lot of guys that have floors, you're basically spotting him an assist or goal to begin the game. So it's a situation where you're paying 2K more for a guy who you have to then spot the other guy an assist plus. It's a tough situation to really wrap your head around because you're basically saying that guy needs a brace. If he doesn't score twice, it's going to be very difficult to make that up. So you really have to put your thought process down, because if you look through the EPL and realistically all these games, if you're in the Champions League or Europeans or all these other leagues, if you're in international soccer, you might have massive favorites. It doesn't happen as much in the EPL. So, for example, if Man City is a goal favorite and they're expected to score 2.5 goals, well, that means Man City is scoring 2 to 2.5 goals, and Leicester is scoring 1.5 to 2 goals. James Madison's getting spotted an assist, and he is almost as likely as Sergio Aguero is to get on the score sheet. So can you really justify spending 2K more and spotting me 6 points? Probably not. But in GPP, you generally want those guys that can score. So a lot of the time what happens is the goal scoring guys, they don't score that. If they don't score that often, their price is generally going to be deflated. And then you look at a situation where they are not necessarily going to be super owned. You might get them at 5-10%, but they might have a chance to get 30 or 40 points if they score 2 to 3 goals. So you sort of find guys that are going to score goals, and a lot of the time center backs, like we talked about earlier, fullbacks, generally the play out wide, have a better chance of sending in crosses, which are going to net you points. The center backs are more likely to score a headed goal on a corner or a set piece situation. But most center backs are scoring 2 to 3 goals max per season. So if you're playing a center back, you're really limiting your chances. But in a GPP, if that center back scores, he's generally going to be priced cheaper than the fullback, and he has a better chance at a goal than that fullback most of the time. There are a few guys that are fullbacks that are very high upside plays as well as floor plays that are a little bit more appealing. But that's when you sort of play more center backs in GPPs.
Just a reminder, if you're looking to invest in yourself and take your game to that next level, I do offer one-on-one coaching, so definitely check out joeholka.com/coaching if you want a little bit more information on that. Actually going to be rolling out some group coaching that I'm super excited about for NFL specifically as well. So if you prefer to just continue to learn in this larger group setting, a lot of people actually don't realize that if they have an Amazon Prime account, you actually have access to a Twitch Prime subscription as well. So make sure you're taking advantage of that, because you'll get access to our premium Discord chat, as well as a bunch of other subscriber-only perks. So you're definitely doing yourself a disservice if you haven't checked out the live streams over on Twitch. So make sure you're following over at twitch.tv/JoeHolka so you don't miss anything. It's time to talk about mass multi-entry and how we should be approaching some of these large field tournaments. Should we be game stacking? How does it all work? How do we get to the top?
Obviously, if you have the ability to make a ton of lineups, go for it. The problem is with soccer, you're limited.
Right.
NFL, I can make lineups on Thursday, have a very good chance that's everyone's going to play. Soccer, you realistically can't make your lineups until an hour before the game when they come out. Lineups come out in about an hour before. If you're in the other leagues, maybe like the Spanish league's usually pretty good. They get them out like an hour and a half. Champions League usually a bit earlier. But so you're limited. So it's very difficult to make 150 lineups in an hour time frame. And the thing is you can't really make them beforehand unless you're crunching them, because you might find a value play somewhere in the slate that becomes a guy that you have to play to unlock a lot of things, and you may not have a clue that guy's starting until the slate starts. Even if you're the best and you follow along with the news and the expected lineups, like I follow all that stuff, but when you're looking for like that cheap value play, it takes one guy that's like 3,200 that's a good play in a decent matchup that all of a sudden this guy unlocks the whole slate, which you didn't think you were going to have, and it can drastically change everything. Yeah, game stack definitely happen, especially for a team like City. They don't necessarily generate a ton of peripheral stats, but City is generally the highest scorer on the slate. They have odds to score more goals than everyone, almost every slate. So it's a situation where you can play 2 or 3 of the guys, hope to connect on score points. And if it comes through, you're looking great. It's not necessarily as prevalent as it is in other sports, but you can stack guys that correlate well with each other on their team. And especially if the team is a massive favorite, you're generally stacking guys that are going to score goals for the team. Again, in international soccer, we see teams that are 3-4 goal favorites frequently. So in those situations, and every other game is relatively close, you're generally stacking more players in that game than anywhere else.
Before we get back at it, if you like my work and you want to support my work, the number one way you can do so for free is by using one of the Amazon links in my description below. A lot of people have just been bookmarking one of those links so that they remember to use it in their day-to-day shopping, because what you buy literally doesn't matter as long as my link brings you to the site. You're doing your part to support the channel. So if you decide to join the Amazon crew, let me know in the comments below and I'll be sure and give you a shout out on the next video. A new format that I've been messing around with in a lot of different sports is Showdown on DraftKings. So I know that Sean has been really enjoying this format as well. So I want to talk about some specific Showdown strategy for soccer DFS.
Yeah, so Showdown's a lot different. The biggest difference in Showdown is shots assisted. So shot assist is basically if I pass the ball to someone and he just shoots at the net, you get 2 points. In the regular scoring, that doesn't exist. So players that play more in the middle generally will create more shots compared to what guys outside do. Whereas, so those guys in the middle in Showdown will create more value than what they do in regular slates, because in regular slates, they don't do much. So you have that. Generally, based on the pricing, you end up at a situation where you play 2 or 3 of the best plays on the slate, and it's almost always you know who those guys are, and then you sort of just fit based around that. Now, that said, the pricing sometimes is semi-egregious, so you can make it work. But recently, goaltender has actually been in play. Before about the last month, goaltender was approximately 0% of the time acceptable in cash and most of the time in GPP. It was one of those things where if you saw someone play the goalie, you would look and laugh because they clearly had no idea what they were doing. That said, they're sort of pricing goaltenders a bit differently now, to where goaltenders are actually a bit more in play. And it's a similar situation. If you would play an underdog goaltender and he makes a bunch of saves, he'll net you a reasonable game as well. But Showdown to me is a lot more fun. The way the scoring is a lot more fun. I enjoy it a lot more. It makes more people playable. The way they price things, defensive midfielders, guys that play through the middle, center backs, they're more playable in this format than other format. So it's more fun to me that the whole team's sort of in play at least when you first look at the slate. Granted, some people are just terrible and you're not going to play them, but when you're looking at, I would say on most regular slates, if there are 6 games, I would bet you that 90% of the time my player pool is under 15 players with 12 teams playing. That sort of stinks that you literally are basically saying there's at most 1 player to 2 players a team on average to play. That's not great. So Showdown's more fun to me because the way that it's played is there's more options. I wish this was the scoring for the regular format. Showdown's obviously a bit more difficult because it's 1 game, but I think this pricing should be dragged over to regular scoring.
Yeah, it's such an interesting format for a lot of different sports. It looks like there's no captain for soccer. Is that right?
There is no captain. However, so I've realized in the last month or so, there is a lot of overlap in soccer, like a lot. All the regs are having same lineups. The one reg this week, I think him and I had the same lineup 3 days out of the last 6 or something. So it's becoming more and more of an overlap. What was fun is, so what happened is they implemented this last year right before the World Cup.
Perfect.
So what happened was right before the World Cup, there's a bunch of friendlies. Friendlies are terrible. They're awful. Everyone subs, and it's just an awful product. But so what happened is the 3 weeks leading up to the World Cup, I ran Showdowns as much as possible because I was just trying to get reps in for when the World Cup starts. So what happened is the World Cup started, and all the regs who are now very good, the first 2 or 3 weeks, they were learning how to play it. So it really set me up at the start of the World Cup to really be at an edge over some of the guys that I'd be playing for high stakes.
That's going to wrap up this 3-part series on daily fantasy soccer. And if you want to learn more how to become a profitable daily fantasy sports player and how to get better at betting, start now by hitting that subscribe icon in the bottom right-hand corner so you don't miss anything. If you enjoyed this course on DFS soccer, make sure you check out the ones for the other sports that I have up on the YouTube channel as well. Everything is totally free and on demand. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.